are live. Happy Wealthy Wednesday. Oh my goodness, today is going to be so great. Listen, I've got my yellow notepad, and this is how I take notes, y'all. I've got my Sharpie, my highlighter, my pen. I am ready to learn. Today is going to be copious note taking, but we're going to have some fun too. And by the way, my name is Leah Garcia, financial strategist and insurance professional. And you know what? Before I muck it all up, I'm going to have my AI do my intro for me. So what do you have to say, AI?
Are you a business owner looking to secure your financial future and create a lasting legacy? I'm Leah Garcia, a financial strategist and insurance professional, and I specialize in guiding businesses with up to 50 employees on how to effectively protect and transfer their wealth. We break down silos with my unique approach, the Wall of Wealth. Imagine a seamless collaboration among your CPA, tax attorney, estate planner, and insurance expert, each playing their part in perfect harmony, ensuring your financial strategy is not just effective, but a true masterpiece. My passion stems from my own journey, from growing up on food stamps to dreaming of building community centers that empower others. Together, we'll craft a roadmap that not only safeguards your assets, but also nurtures generational wealth for your loved ones. Let's transform your vision into reality. After all, you can't measure the heart of a champion just by looking at them. Join me, and let's make your financial future shine.
I got to tell you, every time I see that, it pumps me up. Okay, I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just giving kudos to my amazing social media team. But today is not about me. It's about my incredible guest that I am so honored that he was able to, at the last minute, y'all, at the last minute, he was able to coordinate his schedule, probably push some things aside. Maybe he had to make some apologies to somebody, but he was able to clear his schedule to carve out some time for us today. And he is known as the practitioner, an income impact, a speaker, a mentor. Impossible equals I'm possible. And I actually call him the LinkedIn savant. Okay. And today we're going to be talking to my incredible guest, Mr. Paul Deitch. Take it away, Paul.
Oh my goodness, Leah, thank you so much for having me. What a wonderful introduction and incredible work with your AI. And thank you so much for all your support and kind words. It's been such a pleasure working with you and watching your transformation. And I just want to say hello to everybody tuning in from all over. And thank you so much for your time. And yeah, I'm excited to hop into the conversation.
Awesome. Yes, and we have the great Miss Lisa Favec. She is our health mentor. You know, she's a dietitian and she talks a lot about women's health, women's menopause, but I would say anyone who is looking to increase their good health, I get some incredible tips from her. Please follow her, connect with her. Lisa, please put your stuff in the comments because I know people are going to want to connect with you. So we are going to be talking today, and I love this. You're so brilliant. We're going to be talking about winning on LinkedIn, building presence and profit for the 50 plus. And you know what? That is actually, if you can see, that's his headline. Listen, that's called strategy. So many of us are playing checkers when it comes to social media. The one by one, the one by one. We got to learn how to play chess. And that is what Paul really did. And I didn't even notice it until I went back after. I was like, oh my gosh, you're so brilliant. And so I want to kind of share a little bit. You know, I really treasure our relationship. I learned so much from you, not even from the actual LinkedIn optimization, but even back when we were in the dinosaur age, when we were on these things we called LinkedIn audio rooms. Just how you conduct yourself, the way you interact with I don't know. Can you guys see me? That was fun. Okay.
Was that you? I wasn't sure if it was you or if it was me.
I think it was me. I'm going to say a prayer to the internet, to gods. And Amen. Okay. So, yeah, so I learned a lot from you, just how you engage with people, how you interact with people. And listen, it doesn't matter the age, right? Sometimes we get a little in our heads, we think, well, somebody's younger than us biologically, so we can't really possibly learn from them. I think when we're able to put our egos at the side and just really learn, I learned a lot about how to conduct myself and also just how to be a good steward of our audience. And listen, I'm in the process. There's no way I'm saying I'm done. Okay, no way, because we're either growing or we're dying, and I'm not dying anytime soon, so I'm definitely growing. And then, we had an opportunity to work together. And what you did for me, I can't even really quantify it, because at the time I was really still posting a lot of stuff. I was creating a lot of content, working really hard, and not really seeing anything coming through as in the way of clients. And really, it was a lot of outreach, which can get exhausting, taxing. I felt like I was a slave to the computer. And when we started working together, you said, you know what, Leah, it's not rocket science. There's a few little tweaks here, a few little upgrades. And it really was probably, I don't know, a handful of words and phrases that you really helped me to highlight that made it transformational. Then people start to be curious and they started to reach out to me. And then it's more of, they're coming inbound rather than me constantly out there. So I would like to ask you, Paul, how did you, when you look at somebody's profile, because by the way, we're talking about LinkedIn today. We might be seeing us on other platforms. You might be seeing us on Facebook or YouTube, but we're going to really highlight LinkedIn. I believe LinkedIn is really a core social media. I see a lot of people who do a lot of content on other platforms, but they have no presence on LinkedIn. And I think if that is somebody that you know, or that's you, I think you're making a huge mistake. So let me ask you, Paul, when you start to work with somebody and you look at their profile, it's almost like you can see it without even thinking. What are some of come of the secrets that you can tell us maybe you're looking for when you look at their profile?
Yeah, absolutely. What a great question. So before I get into that, I always think it's important to give context. So in in many ways, like I always joke with a lot of my clients, like when I started on LinkedIn, they were way ahead of when I was because and I've really just been thinking about this. Going on almost 3 years ago, I had no idea what LinkedIn was. Like, I didn't have a profile on LinkedIn. I was born and raised in Hawaii, where it was this small place where everybody kind of knew everyone. So the people around me, or anybody that I worked with or that I interacted with, like nobody talked about LinkedIn. So I didn't really even know what it was. And it all changed when I moved to Florida in March of 2022, when I started training with elite mentors in business and finance. And they were like, well, I was kind of tired of the whole smoke and mirrors aspect, because the first 6 months of 2022, I was building on Facebook and Instagram, and I was in the finance industry. And yeah, I'm sure you know this. Like on a lot of other platforms, it's all about the vanity and the appearance. And when you meet with these people, a lot of times you find that the lifestyle and the things that people communicate on social media are completely different than when you actually have to look at all their information. And I was just like, I just want to help people. Like it wasn't about the money to me. I just wanted to like help and meet genuine people. And when I came to LinkedIn, I did all the things that everybody tells you to do, right? Like, um, do your research, do your diligence, look at like testimonials, all these different things. And my first year, I probably invested, I'd say like $11,000 in multiple people and programs, and that's when I learned that. And I don't think at the time that I really understood the power of LinkedIn. Yet I didn't know at the time really what I was doing, because I had no concept of a lot of things. And because that's how I started, when I interact and I serve other people, I I know kind of why people are doing those things, because they just don't, I always like to say we don't know what we don't know,
Right.
right? And that has been a huge part. I would say the biggest thing when it comes to specifically like the profile on LinkedIn is it's really all about clarity, right? Like if you look at the profile, it's essentially kind of like a billboard. I mean, that's the way that I look at it. Like when you click on your profile, there's three main parts that I would say that, we'll break down throughout the show, but it really comes down to the banner, the headline, and the about section.
Yeah.
And the banner is probably the most neglected aspect, I would say, of the profile. We called it the gray screen of death, because there's a lot of people, like when you look at their banner, and it was even this way for like profile pictures for a while. Like people didn't have profile pictures, they didn't have a banner, and the banner is like such a unique tool because it allows you to like communicate to people who you are and what you do, but also the the aspect that's invaluable, right? If you're in business, like you usually don't get free advertising, and the fact that LinkedIn gives you this huge space to promote like your website, your products, like whatever it is. And I would say like it's so important in your banner to have three things. Number one, you want to have some type of call to action, because on social media, people are so used to direction, right? Like if you look at anytime people do videos, or if they're posting like text posts, they're always going to say like ring my bell, like follow me, send me a connection request. And because people are so used to being guided, when you tell people to follow you, to send the connection request, that usually kind of happens. But to take it a step further, it's like if you want people to go to your website, or you want them to like book a call, like communicating that is so critical. The other thing that I would say, because really when you're looking at your LinkedIn profile, people are really thinking about one question, and it's really like, is that person talking to me?
Mm.
When you look at my profile, in the first like maybe, I don't know, 10 words, who I serve, what problem I solve, and essentially like you get that pretty good understanding of, oh, it's going to be really easy for you to just look at my headline pretty much on like, is this person talking to me? And that's the piece that a lot of people miss. And in in the profile in and of itself, I have this new thing where I give people like five questions, right? And these are the five questions that I begin pretty much with every client that I start working with. And um, number one is who are you, right? Like communicating that, because one of the things that I learned, and this is why I was so grateful that I came onto LinkedIn when the platform started shifting from this like, corporate professional platform to now into this incredible like diverse thing where you can post like any type of content. You could do audio events before. Now you can do live video. You can write articles, like so many different things. It's so versatile that people just don't even know what what they have access to, and a lot of it's like free. You don't need the premium version of LinkedIn. And going back to that, right? So the first question is, who are you? The second question is, who do you serve? And to really touch on that, I want to share something, because a lot of people will look at like niching down as kind of like a negative thing, right? They're like, oh, I don't want to niche down because I don't want it to be restrictive. When I first started on LinkedIn, when I was in the finance industry, I didn't niche down because of my experience. Like you could put anybody in front of me, and there was somebody that I had helped, so I had the experience. But here's what I can tell you. Probably I'd say about 8 months ago, when I changed my headline to what it is now, when on LinkedIn, building presence and profit for the 50 plus age demographic, 90% of the people that reach out and connect with me now are in that 50 plus age demographic, because they understand, like, oh my gosh, this person's like talking to me. And what's become even more powerful is when I hop on conversations with these people, not only because of my content, but when you see like how my profile is structured, it these 5 questions are so pivotal, not just to social media, but I just think any aspect of communication, right? Like if you're trying to sell or do anything, there are 5 questions essentially that everybody's going to ask you. Um, the third question is, what problem do you solve, right? There's so many people that are trying to be everything and anything for anyone. And there's a saying like, when you're trying to work with everyone, you're going to end up getting no one, right? Because having that sense of clarity is so critical. And here's the thing, Leah, that I'll say that really even surprised me about niching down. And there was a phrase that my mentor shared last year, and she said, "Go narrow and deep before going big and broad." And what I learned is that niching down wasn't really about restricting; it was just about targeting, because even though I primarily work with the 50 plus age demographic, I have clients who aren't in that demographic. And it creates so much opportunity and suggestions, because people will see your content, they'll see the message that you're communicating, and they're going to be like, wow, like I've had so many people reach out to me like, hey, I'm not in the 50 plus age demographic, could we work together? And I was like, yeah, like this doesn't mean that, because you're not in the 50 plus age demographic, I can't work with you, but it's about attracting and targeting people so that you can allow your content and your profile to do a lot of the work for you. So I know that was kind of a lot. Before I, dive into the other 2 questions and the other 2 aspects of the profile, I'm gonna throw it back to you. I'm gonna take off my host hat, and I'm gonna be the guest.
No, you're being an amazing guest. Can you guys see me or am I stuck here? Hopefully you
I,
guys could see.
I think you're a little frozen,
I'm
but
frozen. Okay, let's
yeah.
see. Let me see if I can. Oh no, can't do that. Well, I'm not sure if you can see me. I might be frozen, but I'm studying. It looks like I'm studying, and you're correct. I am. I took a lot of notes, and I definitely have a few things I want to highlight, but I also want to welcome a few more people who've joined us. Muhammad, thank you for joining us, my friend. I think you're a new friend here. We appreciate you. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from and what do you do? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you a business owner? And then my good friend, Miss Kendra Knoll. And she says, you are right. LinkedIn is another level. Let me see if I can highlight this. Okay, great. I can. And then we've got another comment she made. A good banner is essential and a billboard is a great example. If you don't know my friend Kendra Noel, please connect with her. She owns Boomtag Media and she will help you to up-level your social media. And by the way, listen, there are a lot of different people who help us with social media. They all do incredible things. Find the person that resonates with you. And I just wanted to kind of circle back. You really highlighted that you dove down into the 50 plus community. And I just got to give this disclaimer here. I barely qualified to work with you. I barely made the age curve. And yeah, but that's okay. A few of you will get it on the way out. Okay. I'm kidding. I'm very proud of my age. So yes, these are pivotal. And so many times we see people, and I'm going to say this, I had spent thousands of dollars on quote unquote professionals who had helped me to create a banner, just the banner part. So it is caught before I met you, Paul, right? So it's not like this was my first foray into social media. I had invested time. I had invested money. I was doing things. I was doing what I thought was the right thing. And I'm not saying that what they did was wrong, but we have to really see, what are we trying to accomplish here? Are we trying to have something that is pizzazzy and sparkly and eye-catching? Or are we trying to convey a message? Are we trying to use that billboard to create the space for the people who will resonate with us, who are looking for us? Yeah, incredible information. So we're on number 4.
Yeah. So the final two questions are simply like why questions. So number 4 is what's your why, right? Like I I always ask my clients this question, and I want to preface this by saying I think knowing who you are is, until you know that, you're probably not really going to figure out the why question. But when I was kind of building out my system that I created my first year, and that's really kind of where it came from, was I was figuring out, after I had invested $11,000 like learning LinkedIn, and realizing that a lot of the information that I learned was either like trendy or outdated. Um, I was really just figuring it out for myself. Really, I had no plan to monetize it and all these things. And what I would always do when I was connecting with people was I would always ask them a question. I'd be like, "Hey, would love to know, like, how can I help or support you?" And after like sending like hundreds of personalized connection requests and all these things, nobody ever really answered that question for me. And in the beginning, I thought that it was like, oh, people are just being like, they're being like humble or shy. They don't want to like say or ask for help. And what I learned was that people just, they didn't really know how you could help them because they didn't know their why, right? Like for me, I'm on LinkedIn to have powerful conversations and build meaningful relationships. I'm not a transactional type of person. Like I don't care about a lot of the vanity metrics, the numbers, the likes, followers, like all these different things. So really figuring out why you're on LinkedIn is so critical, because the answer to that question will answer how people can help and support you. And then the fifth question, I actually think that this could easily be number one. The fifth question is essentially why you, right? And I remember I was at an event, and you know pretty much everybody, like Leo, we talked about this in the pre-live, like everybody nowadays is like a coach, an expert, like all these different things. And with AI and access to the internet, there was a phrase that I was introduced to last year that kind of changed my perspective on things. And it said 99% right equals 100% wrong. And when I heard it, I was like, well, that's interesting. Like I hadn't heard that before. And what it really kind of caused me to do is realize that 99% of people can tell you what to do because you have AI and you have the internet. Like Google is a powerful tool, right? You just ask it and it's like, oh, everybody thinks that they know everything about every other thing, right? And what I learned though is what always separated me apart ever since I was little was 1% are the people who can actually show you not only how to do it, but they know why it works, right? And I think when it comes to designing your profile on LinkedIn, there's the three parts, right? The banner, the headline, and then the about section. The about section is really where you're going to kind of answer, I would say, questions 4 and 5, as well as maybe even question 1 of letting people know kind of like who you are a bit. But it's pinning into that idea of, it's like, why should I listen to what you have to say, right? Like what is it about your story or experience that qualifies you to share or do the work that you do? And that's where a lot of the magic kind of comes in from people, because it allows them to unpack, and you start seeing this shift where your profile on LinkedIn, and this is where I think that a lot of people go wrong. A lot of profilers are just so professional. Like it's almost like people kind of forget that, and I talked about this earlier as well, that connection is built personally, not professionally, right? Like, especially if you're in the professional training and coaching space, um, before you get a client, they're probably going to want to know more about you on like a personal level, have conversations, learn about like what are your values, like all these type of things. So the way that I view the profile, it's essentially just a way to communicate that and allow people to sort themselves. And the last thing that I'll say about the profile, this is my like golden tip that I would share to anybody, is going back to that idea of clarity essentially being the number one goal of the profile. When you are building and designing your profile, look at it as if you were your ideal client or ideal person that you're trying to serve, and ask yourself this question of, would I work with myself? Everybody that I ask that question to says no. And I always get excited because most of the work is kind of done. Like, you know what you have to fix, and all you have to do is go do it. So before we kind of dive into the next aspect of teaching people about gaining attention and maximizing visibility and all these things, Leah, I'll throw it back to you and see if you have any other questions or anything that you want to ask.
Yeah, for sure. And I show myself still like frozen, but you know what? It's not about me. So I'm just loving this. I'm really able to highlight you. Yeah, definitely want to welcome a couple of people, another person, another beautiful soul that's joined us, Miss Divine Maxie. Thank you for joining us. She said that you are glowing from the inside. Isn't that so awesome? We love you, Divine, my sister. And if you don't know my sister Divine, please connect with her. She is deeper than the surface, divine energy, creator, heart, oracle, and she's a spiritual guidance mentor and psychic medium. I would say if you're anyone who is kind of losing your way a little bit, you're not really sure, please connect with Divine. She is so insightful and really help you to discover, those things that are you think might be hidden inside you. So yes, you definitely brought your gold. You brought your gold bag. You brought your gold bars. Those are great golden nuggets. I absolutely love that. And one concept I really learned from you is that so many times we have these little nudges and we think that we should maybe do some things, but it is going against what is being done, right? That's not the way other people do it. And so what do? We want to blend in. We want to be like the crowd. We don't want people to say you're not doing it right. So we go ahead and we acquiesce and we go and continue to do what everyone else is doing. And what I really learned from you is that when I'm having that sense and I'm questioning, to go ahead and follow that. Now, it may take me down a rabbit hole. Maybe that's not it. But a lot of times I'm able to discover something just through osmosis that I didn't really even know could be a superpower. And I said all that to say this. One of the things my intention is about doing this show and highlighting everyone who comes in is that in the comments, I want all of you who join, whether it's live or on a replay, put where you are, what you do, share your links. Listen, I want you to connect with each other. I want you to network with one another. And I'm saying this very intentionally because recently I was listening to a content creator and they said, you know what, if you're on my platform, if you're joining in on my live events, it's disrespectful to shout out who you are. Please keep the main thing. It's about me and my platform and my client. Who I am, me, my I, and I don't want people coming in here and trying to pitch slap everybody in the audience. And I thought, wow, I really don't want that. I really want people this is a networking platform. I want people to network because recently I've had people reach out and they've made connections in my comments. They have conducted business. They have made coffee chats with one another and they're collaborating. And I said, oh my gosh, I get tingles even right now just sharing that because it really is not about me. If this was about me, folks, I would be off camera. If this was about me, I would not be doing this every week. If there's a lot of ways I could have excuses. My hair didn't show up right today and all those other girl things that we know about, okay? But I never think about it that way. I'm trying to bring my intention. I'm going to say try. Let's get rid of the word try. I am intentionally bringing value in the way that I know how. And so what I would ask you, Paul, is, and you really helped me to understand that and embrace that, is that do you think that could be something that holds a lot of people back when it comes to creating their content?
Yeah, absolutely. So my word, theme, and area of focus last year was intuition, right? And I started doing this practice. This is my second year where I have a question that I ask myself like every year. So because intuition was my word, theme, and area of focus, my question that I would always ask myself last year was, what do you say, right? And last year was also my first year in the professional training and coaching space, and it became really eye-opening for me when I realized that most people who are in that space are essentially kind of teaching you how to be like them, right? And
Mhm.
it made me understand why a lot of like the strategies and things that people teach don't work, because if you're not that person, which I mean everybody is unique. Like there's things, for example, that, and this is what I learned, is I'll use my system as kind of like a foundation or like a starting point, but it's really all about figuring out and teaching people how to create a system that's sustainable for them, right? Because this whole idea of winning on LinkedIn, what it looks like to each and every person is so different, right? Like I've
Right.
had people who are speakers where they're not trying to get clients or sell products, they're trying to get like speaking opportunities. So it's like the way that you're going to create, or the people that you're going to target, are completely different than the beginning entrepreneur who's just trying to like sell their course or program or whatever it is. So it's figuring out what works for them. That's why like that why question is so important, right? Because it's going to kind of guide uh where you go in that process. The the other thing that I would say as well, I was thinking about like saving this to the end, but I was like, why not like just say it now, because who knows with all the technical things. The I went to an event last year in Rhode Island that like completely life-changing event, and there was something that was said that I heard there that always stuck with me ever since I heard it, and I remind myself of this all the time. And the quote is, "What's easy for you can be groundbreaking for someone else." And you talked about the age thing earlier, and how I entered the adult world when I was 16. Part of the reason why I got into the finance space was because I lost nearly everyone close to, nearly like my entire immediate family in Hawaii by the time I was 17. So the reason why I was in finance was because I supported my family financially in one of the most expensive places to live in the world since I was 17. And my age was always my biggest insecurity until I had this realization. It was probably, I want to say it was like 3 or 4 years ago. And it changed my entire perspective on how I look at life. And it's this idea that there's always going to be somebody who's ahead and behind of you in life.
Mm.
So it's important. That's why it's important to reach up to grow, and also reach back to teach. And what I would say, if you're creating content, the one of the rules that I would say broke, and I mean there's a lot of rules that I break, but probably the biggest one from a content perspective is I I don't believe that people should create off of research and what other people want. I think that people should create for them. The reason why I created my system was because for me, I was just thinking about I would have loved to have this instead of paying, tens of thousands of dollars to other people and kind of like, you know, still like fumble my way, like have something that is put in place that breaks things down to where anybody can understand, like whether you are completely new to LinkedIn or you've been here for a while and you just didn't use it, right? So that was a big thing for me, and just learning how to not only think for myself but learn how to trust myself, because
Mhm.
there's a lot of people, like I say this all the time, LinkedIn's the only platform that I'm happy to scroll because I learn so much. There's so many people who have incredible stories and experiences, but they just don't know how to communicate it, right? And that's primarily why I serve the 50 plus age demographic, is because I grew up with my grandparents, and I feel like one of the things that has allowed me to kind of transcend this whole like generation thing is I like to say that my life was kind of a tale of two halves. Like the first half was pre technology and social media because I grew up with my grandparents. So it's like I had a typewriter, landline. I didn't get my first cell phone until I was like a teenager. Like I have a pretty good understanding of like how the world was pre technology, right?
Mhm.
But then I've also had the last half of my life where I've seen technology like completely change the game. And where I find specifically in that age demographic where you have this great blend is where social media, I feel like there's a lot of opportunity is if you focus on substance and sustainability, because so many people are focusing on vanity and virality, right? And the thing that I love about LinkedIn is that going viral on LinkedIn doesn't really do much for you. Like I've gone viral multiple times, and it's like it'll get you followers and stuff, but it because of the realness of the platform, like sustainability is really the name of the game. Leo, we were just talking about this. Like there's so many people who focus on like the trends, right? When audio events got removed at the beginning or at the end of last year, but really like finalized the beginning of this year, there's so many people who are like everywhere on LinkedIn, and there's nowhere now. And it goes back to that idea of this is why like systems and things are so much more important than trends and all these other aspects, because the platform is inevitably going to change. That's why my thing on LinkedIn says my network is my algorithm, because ever since I've been on LinkedIn for going on 3 years, I majority of my connections and my friends had like 10 plus times the following that I did. And I was always hearing them complain about losing followers, losing this, losing that. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like my numbers just only go up. And it's like when they would post about, oh, yeah, this type of post is performing bad or this or that, I was like, oh, interesting, because my numbers are actually up. So I think it just goes back to that idea of creating your own rules, right? And figuring out what works for you. There's a lot of things that I see people do that's like great. I'm glad that it works for you. Um, but it's just not my thing. And it's okay to be willing to be different. And it leads into this next aspect of gaining attention and maximizing your visibility. When you look at things from a completely different perspective, or you have a unique circumstance or experience, like that's when people are going to be like, oh, interesting. I never looked at it that way. Or, wow, I didn't know that, right? Going back to that idea of we all don't know what we don't know. And that's what I love so much about the approach of, being an outlier is that when you show up differently, when you do new things, right? With the whole audio events thing,
Right.
I started doing audio events when there was maybe like a handful of people, and nobody was really using it like a business tool and kind of like a marketing um, feature. It was just more of like, hey, we're gonna have like small talk and all these different things, and it just became a really cool way to not only facilitate connection and build relationships with people all over the world, but it was like it was one thing that I knew better than anybody else in the world, and it allowed me to be an asset to the incredible legends and high profile people that I was training with, to be like, hey, thank you so much for sharing this. Like, I want to give you a platform and like introduce you to my people, kind of like what you're doing right now, Leah. So I think that's what's really powerful is there's a lot of people who have incredible messages out there, right? They have so much to share and say, and you'd be surprised how powerful just doing a video of it answering those 5 questions that I shared earlier. That's my assignment with my clients that I work with, is I'll have them make a 2 to 3 minute video answering those questions. And it's like, you'll be surprised how many people in your network are going to reach out to you, how many people are going to send people your way, because it's like you've communicated with them how they can help you, right? Especially if you're somebody who is always giving back and helping other people. Like, that's the unique thing about LinkedIn, is that people actually want people to do well here. There's no like it's not a perfect platform by any means, but compared to any other social media platform, and I've used them all, the negativity isn't comparable to any of the other platforms. And I think that's why it's incredible. And even if you look at it, like, here's I want to share a really interesting story that I had last week, because I was meeting with people, and also we experienced this at the Grammys, where you had an artist who won a Grammy, and I think it was like her song that's like big now, like, was created 4 years ago, and she had no following. She was like a independent artist. I think she was like a teenager. She got dropped from her label, and now, because she has this hit song, she has like this huge following of like millions of people. She's able to use her platform to share a message. I think she talked about support for health insurance and care for like people in the music space, primarily newer artists. Because she's like, there was a time where I wasn't making any money, like I didn't have any care, but I'm giving this company like everything, and they're not, giving me anything in return. And when you think about like the power of online presence, that was like such a perfect example for me, because it's like, how many people across the world feel the same way that she does, right? But it's like, because she has the presence, because she has the platform, she was able to create impact and start those conversations. And that's really what these conversations are about, because there's a lot of people who are so brilliant, right? And there's a lot of people who have so many stories and experiences, but they're not willing to start the conversation, right? With this show, you start the conversation, and that's why doing things like this is just such an incredible asset for gaining attention and maximizing your visibility, because you and here's one of the things, like, if there's one thing that I could go back and I could do differently, the biggest mistake that I made when I started building my presence online 3 years ago is I did it all by myself, right? And I was like, oh, I'm going to create content. I've created thousands of videos. I've, done almost probably like 1,000 events when you add my audio and live video events. The the biggest mistake that I made was not using my experience and expertise to be an asset to other people who already had the audience built, because then it became a win-win situation. You have people that need to know about the information and the value that I provide, and I need to grow my presence. So it's like a win-win thing. And that's like one of the things that I would tell people is you don't need this huge following. Um,
Yeah.
my first one-on-one client that I had before like the whole Top Voice thing became like I call it a participation trophy because you can just write articles and get it. My first one-on-one client, she had less than like 200 followers before she became like a top voice in the professional training and coaching space, which is probably the most like
Yeah.
saturated
Curated. Yeah.
space on LinkedIn. And I was telling her like it's all about the content. It's all about the substance because people on LinkedIn, they know a lot of people are familiar with the games, with the focus is completely different on LinkedIn versus the other platforms. So that's what I would say from a visibility standpoint. And just going back to connection, there I'm sure a lot of people have heard the phrase facts tell and stories sell.
Mhm.
And the reason why storytelling is so powerful, and see, going back to this idea of, 99% of people can say, like, oh, yeah, share your story, blah, 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 but they don't know why it works or how to do it. I'll share this story with, I'll share why with the story. So I want to say it was probably like almost 2 years ago. Yeah, going on 2 years when I created Impossible Equals Impossible. We brought on the first guest. I had a co-host at the time, and they hadn't met each other at all. Like they had no idea who they were, anything like that. And the entire time I was just listening, we were having a conversation, and and it was also one of my best friends. So as she was sharing her story, my co-host, I could see she was kind of like in this trance almost of like, wow. And I remember I would go back to her and I'd say, hey, it's like, do you want to add anything? And she looked at me and she said, no. She's like, I'm kind of actually just speechless right now. Like so much of her story is my story. And that's when
Mm.
I realized like that's what makes storytelling so powerful. A lot of people get so wrapped up on the context. Like most people probably can't relate to the context of my story. Like a lot of people watching this are probably like significantly older than me, right? But where you really connect is in the feeling and the emotion, right? Like as I talk about when I started on LinkedIn and I had no idea what I was doing, right? Like a lot of people can go back to a time in their life and be like, oh, yeah, like I can connect with that. And I think that's where connection really becomes transformational. And that's where like going into that third piece of conversion, you're going to start like seeing a lot of that when people are like, oh my gosh, like you essentially were where I am. And I think that's what I would say as well for a lot of people from a content perspective. A lot of people forget where they came from. And I wrote this post a couple days ago and I talked about the secret to communication is communicating like you have all the experience and the expertise that you have while doing it as if you're talking to somebody who knows nothing. And it's really about simplifying a lot of things. And I mean, Leah, that's really what you experienced when we worked together. Was it it was a lot of simple stuff and you're like, oh my gosh, like that was so simple, right? Like I didn't look at it
Yeah.
from that perspective. And a lot of times it goes back to that idea of less is more. And we live in a world where people think like more, more. I have to create more content. I have to do more messages, more of this. When really if you invest more time into doing the right things, then it actually in the long run becomes a lot less work, and you'll allow it to work more for you than getting caught up in the pieces, and that way you can focus on the picture. So that's what
Yeah.
I would say.
Wow, wow, wow. I'm so glad that my camera's frozen so we can just allow you to just share all your golden nuggets because that was gold. If you missed it, I want you to replay the last 10 minutes because there was a lot of golden nuggets in there. And I want to highlight a few points that you made, but I want to welcome a few guests. You were talking about storytelling. I want to welcome Noni's Uncle Jay, the amazing Jay Pascal, the storyteller strategist. He just dropped his new book, which is a rules of engagement. I want all of you to reach out to him because storytelling is so profound. Learning how to start to tell your story is critical. So please share it in the comments, Jay. And then we have a new guest that I don't know, but I'm going to attempt to welcome him. This is Yadishari Yadisharji. I know I'm butchering your name, but welcome. Thank you for joining us. It's great to see you here. Where are you from? Are you a business owner? Are you entrepreneur? And then we have Dr. Roxana. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. She just dropped her new book as well. Please put it in the comments, Dr. Roxana. Dr. Roxana. And then look it. This is so sweet. Thank you for the love, Miss Divine. All the golden nuggets, both of you has helped me as well. You know, one thing I want to kind of highlight, although you said a lot, one thing I want to circle back on is I think oftentimes people are apprehensive or get stuck into creating a certain type of content because they absolutely are not being their authentic self. This is the gloves off conversation, y'all. Okay. You didn't come here for rainbows and butterflies. I think that they're concerned that if people see them off camera, and I may be wrong, but if they see them in different contexts, that it's not going to be congruent. And this is what I'm going to say about that. You really helped me to really discover and go a deep dive into coffee chats. I was doing coffee chats before, but when we connected, I really dove deep into coffee chats. And I still to this day do about 10 coffee chats a week. And it's very interesting. You will learn so much about your audience. You're going to learn so much about people, and you're going to learn so much about yourself and probably many other things. And one thing that I have learned is that so often people are trying to have one display of who they are. But then when we peel back the onion and go behind the scenes, it's not really congruent. You know, when they were creating my AI, I'm like, add some great hair, add some wrinkles. Like it looks too perfect. I'm not 30 years old. Right? So what would you say about people? And I don't know. I think that being authentic is difficult. It really is. First, like you alluded to, we have to know our why. We got to know who we are. And some of us are still in the process of that for sure. But what would you say about somebody who really isn't sure about being authentic? Like, how do we know if we're being authentic? What are some litmus tests? And then we're kind of winding down here. Can't believe this hour has gone by so fast.
Yeah, what a great question. You know, I really do believe that it comes down to identity. Like my approach to social media is so different from pretty much everybody that I've met. And I, going back to the experience that I had in Rhode Island, one of the speakers was a guest that I had met and interacted through my community, the Outlier Project, numerous times. And he said something that was like so profound to me. And he said, when you know who you are, you don't need to be seen. And
Boom.
when I heard that, I was like, oh, this explains why like I don't care about a lot of the same things that everybody else does on social media. And I you have to figure out what is like the why is so important. For example, like for me, and Leah, you and I have talked about this, like I care more about alignment than I do money, because I always find that I want to be a part of something bigger than myself. Like, I don't want to work with people just because they can afford to pay me, but I'm not like invested in what they're doing, right? Or it's like they're not somebody that I would want to like share or do stuff like this for, because a lot of people ask me to come on podcasts, and a lot of times I just say no because it's scripted, or they're trying to like leverage, whether it's like a connection that I know or things like that. Like, I can kind of just tell a lot of these things. But also, like, I don't know that much about them. I
Mm.
remember I remember like when I used to speak a lot, the number one advice that I give to people now is like, before you speak on a podcast, go watch like an episode, because
Right.
if you don't like what you've seen in the previous, like, you're you're probably like not setting yourself up. And that was one of the things that I did in the beginning, was just speaking like anywhere and everywhere. And looking back, I'm like, oh, I probably shouldn't have done that, right? And it's what's one of the things that I'll say too is, when it comes down to like conversion and content, conversations are an absolute game changer. My mentor said, when you conquer your conversations, you'll conquer your world, right? And when you
Mm.
really think about business, relationships, like anything that is important, right? Like, it all starts with a conversation. Before you get a client, before you speak on a stage, before you have a friend, right? More often than not, it probably started with a conversation. And where you can really utilize these coffee chats and stuff for content as well, just like food for thought for you, Leo. People would always ask me, like, where does a lot of your content come from, right? Because the things that I would post and were completely different from what a lot of people did. And i I was introduced to this kind of idea of really just, when I look at social media, it's like, in many ways, just translating the life that I live offline online. So a lot of my content and problems that like I'll solve, or ideas, are like conversations that I'm having with people, like challenges. And that's the nice part about these coffee chats, is if you just listen to what people are saying, a lot of times like people will tell you how to sell to them. They'll tell you what they essentially need. All you have to do is listen. And the last thing that I want to share with people, coming from a conversion standpoint, and it's also a content strategy, the polls are polls, POLLS, are an incredible tool to generate leads and people who are interested when you offer your solution as a question. So, for example, if I did a poll, my question would be like, what is your biggest challenge on LinkedIn? Is it profile optimization? Is it content strategy? Is it a conversion, right? And then the fourth one's like, other comment. And what's so fascinating about that, and this is a huge misconception that a lot of people have, most of your clients on LinkedIn, they're not going to be your followers. They're not going to be
Right.
people that like come to your events. They're people who are like watching in the shadows.
That's right.
And what your poll does is it gives people an opportunity to, where you're opening it up, like, hey, like, what's your challenge? Like, I want to help you. And what I found is that created a lot of opportunity as well, because people, and I don't know if this is kind of like a pride thing and probably goes back to psychology, people aren't so inclined to like actually reach out to you for help. But when you ask and you give people an opportunity via like question or whatever it is, they're more inclined to, respond. And then it gives you the in, right? Because this is the biggest problem that I experienced when I was in the finance world, is that most people have the experience and the expertise to close the door. This is the biggest challenge I found with every service-based business. We don't have the luxury of people who have like physical products where you can like show and demonstrate a lot of that. Um, what these polls do is it gives you an opportunity to get your foot in the door. If you're watching this and you're a service-based business, that's probably the biggest challenge that you're having is getting your foot in the door, because your story and your experience and expertise will close it. But all that's pointless if you can't get in. So yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
would.
that is so good. I really think a lot of people don't even understand what polls are. Like I learned so much from polls. You learn about other people, you can connect. I mean, there's just so much. We can do a whole episode just on polls and the psychology. And it doesn't have to be, in my opinion, it doesn't have to be something that's directly your marketing your product. People want to give their opinion. And how many times do we get an opportunity to share what we think? What do you think? Do you like cats or dogs? I mean, I'm being facetious, but this was so good. I do want to welcome somebody, a new guest. I have never met you, Corey. Is there a link for this? Yes, there is. And I will personally send that out to you. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. Where are you tuning in from? What do you do, Corey? And all of you who are here, please give yourself a shout out. What do you do? We want to connect with you. We want to know about you and what you do. So you've dropped a lot of golden nuggets here. You definitely brought a lot of wisdom. I know that you've accomplished a lot in your young years. You're so young. What is going to be for 2025? Like where are we going to see Paul in this 2025 when it's our year to rise up and thrive?
Oh my goodness, Leo, what a loaded question. So my word for 2025, I think I said it earlier, is unconditional, right? So really for me, it's gonna be, and my question for this year is what's worth it, right? And really figuring out like what does that look, feel, and mean for me, right? And what's been so fascinating for me as I've really started implementing that, um, really, I would say like the last like month or two of 2024 was I looked back at where I was, even just like a year ago, and I'm already finding that what was worth it then isn't
Mm.
worth it now. And what you're really going to see, I would say more from me this year, is just going back to a lot of the things that I did when I first started on LinkedIn, right? Like just serving people. The whole point of why unconditional became my word for 2025 is the holidays really kind of embedded this into my brain about how people are so conditional, right? Like for me, I like to say every day is Thanksgiving. I don't just celebrate it once a year, or it's like you don't need it to be like Christmas or your birthday to like do stuff. And that translates so much into um the personal life, right? Where it's like people don't really have like relationships. It's like transactional, where it's like, oh, well, it's like they'll use the help part, but then when you can't pay them, it's like, oh, well, I don't want anything to do. For me, I'm happy to serve to anybody who took the time to watch this video. If there's anything that I can do to help or support you, if you have a question, if you want like an explanation, feel free to drop a comment, shoot me a connection request, and I just notate or whatever, like, hey, from Leah's show or whatever it is. I get so many of them. The personalized ones always are easier for me to kind of spot. But yeah, it's really about helping people to stop being the best kept secret and share their story, because I think
I
people.
love it. And you got a great comment right here. I just started a new position as a sales rep for a 40-year-old family-owned business. I struggle with LinkedIn on my approach. All media sites are a lot different, and you hit it. You nailed it, Corey. You are correct. LinkedIn is I think it's a beautiful place. I really do. LinkedIn, I have found, is so forgiving. Listen, when I started these Wealthy Wednesdays, they don't look like they do now. Okay, but you know what? I love that because Dr. Benjamin Hardy says if we're not embarrassed by who we were 6 months ago, then we have not grown. And so I love that I'm showing you in real time what it looks like to grow. Those of you who've been connected with me for a little while, you've seen me evolve. I didn't have it all figured out, but we have to be willing to get messy. We say that the mess is in the message, but then we aren't willing to get dirty. Right? The dirty journey is where it's at. So absolutely. And he actually wrote some really great comments here. I don't know if I can post all of these, but I want to highlight it really great. You absolutely should connect with Paul. And this is there we go. But this has been a very different, unique. I love this. You drop so much. And I just appreciate you. I know people want to connect with you. How do they reach you? Where do they find you? And make sure that you put your connections in the comments afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty much on, I'd say, all the social medias, but LinkedIn's by far the primary one for me. Um, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to expanding my network intentionally and finding people who are heart centered and focused on impact. And yeah, having so much content and things like that on my profile. So whether we work together or not, I'm always just putting out stuff that people can take and implement. And yeah, I just want to say, Leah, it's been such a pleasure. So grateful to you for this opportunity and the relationship that we've built. And I love seeing how much you've grown and embraced new things. And yeah, it's so cool that, I got to play a little part on your journey. And that's why I think when I look at like mentorship and a lot of these things, I always say, like, as much money as I make from people, like, changing a life is priceless. And just to know that you have a small little part in somebody else's story is really the greatest gift. And yeah.
And absolutely, I appreciate those kind words. I received that. But truly, you helped me with that infrastructure, right? Some people call it the foundation. Before the foundation comes the infrastructure, which is the mind shift. I don't talk about mindset. I think something that we set is sedentary. It's static. We have to upgrade our thinking. And so you really helped me with the infrastructure of really the concept, those questions, and really genuinely stepping into those things that we think resonate with us and not being afraid. Or maybe if we're afraid, it doesn't matter if you're afraid. Listen, I don't come on here like I love to be on camera, but I do it because it's my intention behind it is to serve. And how do you know? Because I'm doing it every week. And the reason I'm able to do it every week is because I have incredible people who are so generous. They take time away from their business. They bring their golden nuggets. They share value. Otherwise, if it was just me talking for an hour every week, it probably wouldn't be this exciting. Okay. It might get a little boring to see the same face. So I love this. This was great. This was a lot of fun. I knew it was going to be. And I appreciate you. I appreciate our connections. I appreciate us that we're going to rise up and thrive in 2025. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to end it with this. Is that if you are struggling with your social media and you are just trying to figure out all this stuff, listen, we can't do things by ourselves. They say a rising tide raises all boats, but I'm going to qualify that only if your boat is in the water. So oftentimes we're sitting on the sidelines and we're thinking, I wish I could do this. I wish I could do that. And maybe I should try this. And we end up doing nothing. You got to put your boat in the water. And what does that mean? You got to make a mess. You got to show up even when it doesn't feel 100% authentic, when you're not really sure, and reach out to people who can help you. Paul, if you don't know, he is one of the most generous people I know on LinkedIn. Go back and look at some of his previous posts. He posts weekly and he gives these golden nuggets week after week after week after week, and start to see if he resonates with you. And I know that he will. You're going to want to reach out to him because it's really only 1 degree of separation from where you are to where you want to be. That's the determining factor. That's a separator, right? We don't want to be like everybody else. We say that we want to be unique, but then we want to look and sound like everyone else. Like, no, be authentically you. So thank you so much. This is going to do it for this week of Wealthy Wednesday. Thank you so much, Paul. This was fun. I don't know where the hour went. We're way over time. So I apologize for going over. And by the way, my AI is going to take us out. So thank you so much, Paul.
Are you ready to take control of your financial future? Introducing Leah Garcia's Wall of Wealth, the ultimate one-page financial plan to protect, distribute, and transfer your wealth with confidence. Whether you're a business owner or just starting your financial journey, this step-by-step guide gives you the tools to create a solid foundation for long-term success. Don't wait to transform your money mind shift. Download your free copy today at leahgarcia.io and start building your wall of wealth now.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you. Thank you for joining. We appreciate all the comments, and hopefully we'll see you next week. And let's all rise in 2025. Thank you so much, Paul. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Leah.